for the Prime Minister to come out publicly and start putting the pressure on them, it kind of shows that what they want to do, what the banks want to do, and what they're actually doing, there's probably at this point in time an administrative obstacle in the way of saying yes to business owners who clearly want money. We know that loans are being deferred. That's good. But there are a lot of small business people in particular who are finding that they've got a cash flow problem, Laura, because they're effectively paying JobKeeper, but they haven't received any money from JobKeeper. So there's the month of April, and some people I know might have, say, 10 casuals who used to be on, say, $400 a fortnight are now on $1,500. So, there's a big difference between 10 times 1,500 and 10 times 400 in terms of your cash flow. So banks need to say yes really quickly to make this April work well for lots of businesses. And I think the banks have been accused of being too slow.
Yeah, right. So do you think the banks have just been too slow rather than a concerted, effort to block these loans, playing by the old rules, if you like? And we have to say that not all banks are created equal. NAB has a lot of business loans, whereas, the Commonwealth is more the residential mortgage side, isn't it?
Yeah, well, and look, I think in the fullness of time, we'll find out which banks were the fastest, and they're the ones who get the big national tick of approval. But the interesting thing is, going into this crisis, the banks were as popular as acne, and now, they really have been given a chance, and they are perceived as being, a big contributor to this rescue program. So I think over the next week or two, they need to get some really favourable publicity around the fact that their computers are saying yes, not no.
Yeah, good point, Peter. Now, let's look at superannuation. I think a couple of weeks ago, the Treasurer said that they'd banked on about, a couple of 100,000 people, 1.6 or $1.7 billion worth of early super being paid out. That's now up to almost $4 billion, and more is coming.
Yeah, and look, the Treasury thought in total it would be about 27 billion, Laura. Other industry experts think it could be as much as 50 billion.
Wow.
But the interesting thing is, Laura, that I know when I was on Peter Credlin's show during the week, Adam Crichton from The Australian was saying one of his high-flying mates was going to draw out the 20,000, and so was his partner. So they effectively get 40,000 out of their super, which they're going to use to buy a house. Now, and when you look at the eligibility criteria, the one that could get people, if you're on JobSeeker, you can get your money out no problem whatsoever. But if you're on JobKeeper, it's going to be harder unless your hours have been reduced by 20% or more. And I think a lot of people on JobKeeper could be in that sort of situation. So the amount of money that comes out of super, could be actually, increased by the fact that, some first-time buyers might look at this as an opportunity to get an enormous deposit to help them get in the on the property ladder.
Wow, that's one take. I'm sure the government wouldn't be encouraged such things. But can you explain to me how this affects the structure, the architecture of the super system? We know that self-funded retirees are probably suffering more than most through this crisis because they don't have that safety net. We've seen, obviously, the share market go down, which is heavily affects superannuants and self-funded retirees. So as a system that holds trillions of dollars worth of capital, what's going on?
Yeah, the only concession retirees have got is that rather than withdrawing their minimum, which for a lot of them is 4% of their total amount each year, has been cut in half. But that's sort of small relief for self-managed super funds. For the whole super industry as a whole, it's a multi-trillion-dollar industry, so the withdrawals will not be, terrible for the system going forward. But the forecast of where super funds are going is going to be desperately affected by the fact that if $50 billion is dragged out over a short period of time. And let me say this, Laura, because a lot of our super funds are invested in the stock market, they would have been selling shares to get the cash to pay out to their members as they ask for the 10,000 now and 10,000 after June 30. And it's part of the reason why our stock market has not rebounded as strongly as the US market, because super funds have had to liquefy a lot of their assets.